Hi, and welcome to the Working Mom Happiness Method podcast. I'm Katy Blommer, and I'm so excited. This is episode 1 of my podcast, my first ever only podcast. So yay. But before we jump into what I'm going to cover in this first episode, I want to take a minute just to help you understand who this podcast is for, because I don't want you to be misled by the term working mom. The truth is, I started with coaching working moms because that's what I was most familiar with. I have been a working mom in the corporate world. I've been in the corporate world for the last 20 years, but as a mom for the last 12 years. So I started there because I was most familiar with it. However, 90+% of what is in the method benefits all women, whether you have kids or no kids, or whether you're a stay-at-home mom or work outside of the home mom. And let's just stop and recognize that all moms do work, but also just all women do work. And so if you are feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, or you're struggling with body image or maintaining healthy habits or just finding balance in life, if you struggle with guilt when you take care of yourself or putting yourself first, right? All of those types of things, you have come to the right place. This is for you. So welcome. I am so glad you're here. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to just say just before jumping into the official first episode is I am taking messy action here. And messy action is a term that I have learned on the journey that I've been on that I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute, but I didn't make it up. I learned it from a business coach I had in the past, and I don't think she made it up either, but I love the term messy action, and you'll hear about it in future episodes as well. And messy action just means that when you're feeling afraid to do something, or you're just dreading something, or you're procrastinating it for whatever reason, you just sort of like do it, like a quick and messy version to get it started, because we know that if we just jump in and take action and move forward, we're going to make more progress than if we just procrastinate it. And that's what I'm doing with this podcast. It's kind of terrifying, if I'm being honest with you. So I might be awkward. I might stumble over my words. I might say a million times. And I'm just asking you to bear with me, because this is my version of taking messy action, because I am so passionate about spreading this message and helping other women learn through all of the failures and mistakes and struggles that I went through to get here. And that truly is my passion and my goal with this business that I have created. So Women's Best Life University is my business that I've just recently started. And the Working Mom Happiness Method is a big part of that. I am so excited to expand out of that. That's what I've been working on for the last year and a half, the Working Mom Happiness Method. But I'm so excited to eventually expand even further beyond that. And really, even though it sounds cheesy, change the world. And the way I want to change the world is I want to change the way society raises women. And specifically what I mean is that society raises women, girls and women, to believe that our value and our worth is based on the way our body looks and how we serve others and those around us. And it's not okay. And it has to change. And that's why I wanted to create this podcast, because it allows me to offer the Working Mom Happiness Method, which, fundamentally is teaching you to learn how to put yourself first, amongst many other things. I wanted to put it in this podcast so I could reach more and more people. So please, if any of what I say resonates with you, please tell your friends and family members, any women who you think would benefit from this. Please let them know. Please like and subscribe and leave good reviews, because that actually helps the podcast be shown to more and more women. And I truly am passionate about changing this thing that most women have, where we base so much of our value and our worth on the way our body looks and serving others. And we just have to turn that around in order to live our best and most happy lives. And that's what I am all about. So episode 1, here we go. Actually, no, not yet. Before we jump into episode 1, I want to tell you a little bit about how this podcast is going to work. So because we are busy women, I'm going to try to make the episodes between 20 and 30 minutes. And the episodes are going to be my method itself. So the Working Mom Happiness Method before this has been a paid program. You could take it in a group or one-on-one, and I have run multiple rounds of ladies through it. 100% of them have said they would describe it as life-changing, which is so exciting to me, because that is my whole entire goal. But I am now translating it over into this free version via the podcast. If you are somebody who is a self-starter and self-motivated, you will love this, and it will genuinely change your life. It's going to take longer because I'm doing it in smaller portions for these podcasts. So it'll go out over many, many episodes. if you're somebody, but you could do it. You can do the whole program for free that way on the podcast. It'll be all the same information I share in the paid program. You just won't have direct access to me, and you won't have like the accountability, or the group members. And there is huge benefit to that. Like, I'm not minimizing that. So the paid programs are still available. If you want some more support or access to me, or to do this in a group of like-minded women who you can, be vulnerable with and empathize with and share with and create that community, then definitely go check out my website. It's womensbestlifeuniversity.com. You can look at the course options there, and I would love to have you take one of those, but I would also love to have you take it here if that works better for you. So that's kind of how all this is going to work. Like I said, 20 to 30 minute episodes, trying to keep them fairly quick. But I will have interspersed throughout there some interviews, and those will probably be a little longer. But the interviews will be women who have taken the program, what they've learned, what they struggled with before, how it has changed their lives. And then I'll also just bring on just busy working moms to share some of the tips and tricks that they have. And then I may also do just live coaching sessions as well on here. So as it morphs into all that, but it is going to be fundamentally the method in order. I will share it all here. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself before I tell you. So I'm going to tell you about me. I'm going to tell you what the Working Mom Happiness Method is. And then I'm going to talk about my definition of happiness, or the 4 most critical items, because happiness is obviously subjective, but the 4 most critical items that I think apply to all humans as it relates to creating your best and happiest life. And then I'm going to talk about 5 feel-good non-negotiables that are absolutely, well, non-negotiable. That's why they're called that, as it relates to living your best life. Okay. So let's jump in. I'll tell you a little bit more about me. I'm Katy. I live in a suburb of Salt Lake City, Utah. I have been married for 18 years, which feels insane to me because I don't feel that old. I am 39 years old as of this recording. And we live in a suburb of Salt Lake City, Utah. I have 2 kids. They are ages 10, both boys. As of this recording, they're 10 and 12 years old. I worked for a fabulous company, American Express, for 19 years. And I just ended up leaving just about a year and a half ago. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that when I get into the journey that I've been on. But a fabulous company, love the people, love the company. And in a shocking turn of events, I'm actually heading back there in a couple of weeks as of this recording. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that too as I get into my journey. So that's just a little bit about me. Let me jump into how I got to right now when we're recording this podcast. I'm going to try to keep it short, but I'm a talker. But I think it's important for you to understand how I got here. So it started with about 11 years ago, after having a little more than 11 years, because my son is 12, and this was about 8 or 9 months after I had him. I was struggling with what I think was probably postpartum depression. I wasn't officially diagnosed with that, and it wasn't extremely severe, but I just had kind of lost myself. I was feeling very zombie-ish and needed some help. And so I ended up getting a therapist for the first time in my life, and she was amazing. And she helped me, to make a very long story short, understand that I had so much of my value and worth tied up in how my body looked. That was sort of like an outer layer of an onion for me. That was the outer layer. And it was blocking me to even get any lower to some of the other things that I needed to work on that I didn't even know were sort of there existing, because so much of my time and energy was fixated on dieting and trying to lose weight and yo-yoing and just being obsessed with trying to get my body to look a certain way. And of course, I'm sure it can relate if you've had babies, that is amplified after a pregnancy because you gain weight during a pregnancy. And so she had helped me learn how to delink those two. And it was a process, believe me, how to delink my value from the way my body looked. It was a process. It took a long time. It was terrifying for me because she had to train me to stop focusing so much on weight loss and focus on health instead. And I literally told her that if I did that, I was going to die. Didn't happen. Here I am, alive and healthier than I've ever been. But what I realized as I uncovered that layer, because I'm so obsessed with that, was that I was unhappy in my life. My life looked amazing on paper. It did. I had a great job, a great guy for a husband, great kids. On paper, my life looked perfect, but I was unhappy. And then I started to feel guilt that I was not grateful and that I was unhappy, even though my life looked so good on paper, right? and, you know, had to work through all that. But I realized that, my needs weren't being met in my marriage. I wasn't spending time taking care of myself, putting myself first, I was putting everyone else before me, and I was exhausted and overwhelmed. And so I kind of had to work down through the layers of that onion. And that was, you know, like I said, over the last 11 years, that was a process and a journey that I've been on. And the process, I mean, I spent thousands of dollars on therapy and, you know, coaching sessions and hundreds of hours doing all those things, so many failures and learning from those failures and starting over, trial and error. And so it was kind of like this crazy time where, as I started to value myself, my confidence grew. And as my confidence grew, I started getting promoted at work and climbing the corporate ladder. And I got to, and I'm not saying this is not meant to like brag, because I'm a little uncomfortable talking about this. It's not for bragging. It's to help you understand how this can unlock, you know, what you want, if this is what you want. But I got to a point in the corporate world where I was making more money than I had ever dreamed of. I mean, multiple six figures, doing really well as it relates to corporate world. And like I said, I loved the company. It was fabulous, but I was climbing the corporate ladder. But all at the same time, because my confidence had built, I was starting to stand up for my needs and what I wanted in my marriage. I was starting to say no to things and put myself first, and spend money that I had worked so hard to earn for the longest time, but that my husband wasn't comfortable spending. And by the way, my husband is a great person. I don't want to make this sound like he's not, because he's a great person, but he had some things he needed to work on, and money was a big one of them. And we ended up, I mean, to make a really long story short, our marriage pretty much ended up falling apart, but we ended up in marriage therapy, a couple of years of intense marriage therapy, and we turned it around. And so the kind of moral of the story is, as I went through all this, I ended up going from a place where I hated my body and I had an underlying level of exhaustion, probably a little depression mixed in there, where I was just kind of struggling. I was just kind of like getting by in life, right? Just very sort of like mediocre, getting by, wasn't happy, wasn't taking care of me, to now I am legitimately living my best life. Like, it couldn't be better. My relationship is amazing. I take time for myself. I set boundaries. I have quality time with my kids that I enjoy, because I don't think I have to spend a million hours with them every day. Actually, it's just 15 minutes, by the way. We will talk about that more, but really what kids need is 15 minutes a day of quality, you know, eye contact time, game changer. But you might not believe that. You might think that's crazy, but we'll talk about it more in a later episode. But as I went on this journey, and especially as I started getting promoted in the corporate world and mentoring more and more people in the corporate world, I started to open up to women about some of these struggles that I had been through. And it started to help them. It started to help bring out their confidence, and it started changing their lives. And I was like, wow, I really love this mentoring and coaching thing. It became like a true passion of mine. And my job got to the point where it was getting so busy, because of the level that I had gotten to, that I didn't have a whole lot of time to do it as much as I had before. And the reality is, it just got to a level where I was working 50, 60 hours a week regularly, and I wasn't seeing my kids. It wasn't aligning with my values at the time. I really wanted to spend more of that time with my kids. And so I ended up making this, it was like the ultimate boundary for me, because I had been working on boundaries through my journey all the way up to this boundary, saying no, taking care of me, putting me first in the scariest of ways. And it ended up becoming the ultimate boundary that I walked away, which was terrifying, for so many reasons, right? Loved the company, loved the people, had built a 19-year career there, was making multiple six figures that I walked away from. And I want to stop and recognize it is a privilege to be able to walk away from that. Like, all of this is very privileged. And I do 100% recognize that. It was a privilege that I had a husband who had a good enough job that I could walk away. I fully recognize that, but it was the right move for me at the time. And I never even quit specifically with the intention of starting a coaching business. I truly didn't. I was just burned out, and I was going to take a break and spend some time with my kids. Well, I ended up stumbling upon a business coach on Instagram. And to make a long story short, I ended up taking her course, and I ended up taking, you know, it was a whole coaching program, basically learning how to coach and how to create a program. And the Working Mom Happiness Method actually came from that. And immediately I had a group of women who, you know, wanted to enroll and take the program after I came out of the coaching course. And that was amazing. And it started changing lives. And literally, I mean, literally changing their lives, because that they said they would describe it as life-changing, and it just felt so good. And so that's where this whole passion was born and came from. In fact, I've been working with a different business coach recently, and she just asked me how my current round of the program was going. And I said, if I won the lottery, I would keep doing this. Like, that's how much I really, really love it. And anyway, it's a passion project for me more than it is a making money project. But that's one of the reasons I'm sharing it here for free on the podcast. Like I said, I want to change the world. I want to reach as many women as possible with these tips that I learned along the way. So then what ended up happening, which felt amazing, is that my company had reached back out to me and said, we would love to have you back, and we would love to do it, in a way that will work with you and your boundaries and, avoid burnout and all of that. So the most amazing leader at my company had let me know about a position that was available, and I ended up applying for it, and it just feels like the best fit. And I'm so excited. And so I'm going to continue running my coaching and going back to my corporate job, which to me feels like the best of both worlds, but I'm going to do it in a way where I'm going to stick to my boundaries, and I will let you know how that goes. And I will involve you. And especially if you follow me on Instagram, it's just at Katy Blommer on Instagram. I will be posting on my stories how it's going, because I am a little scared of the whole boundary thing, but I really believe at this point I can do it after years and years of boundaries work. I have to stick to my boundaries and not go back into burnout position, but I'm so excited to do that and simultaneously run the coaching business, which is amazing, and still be able to spend that time with my kids, and my husband and all of that stuff. So that's, like I said, kind of a longish story about me. What I want to do now is tell you a little bit more about the program, the Working Mom Happiness Method. And this is going to be the short version, because we're going to get way into it as we go through these episodes. But essentially, the program is 4 modules. They are values, goals, boundaries, and tools for success. Okay. Values, goals, and boundaries are in that order for a very specific reason. And we'll talk about that more. But the reality is, most of us don't really think about, well, that's not true. We think about it. We don't get formal and deliberate about writing down what we value in life, where we want to spend our time. So we're going to we have exercises to get really specific and deliberate about that and write it down. And then we want to make sure our goals tie back to our values. That's really critical. We're going to get really deep on goals. It's not going to be like where you say, New Year's resolution, oh, I'm going to get healthy this year. And then you just say it once, and then you do healthy things for 2 weeks, and then you stop. It's going to be a whole different process. And then in order to achieve those goals, you have to have boundaries. And the goal is you have to write them down and read them every morning. And I'm going to walk you through that. We're going to do it together. I have a whole template for a best life master plan document that you're going to create, and that's free. You'll be able to download the template off the website. It'll be a Google Doc, and you can fill it in as we go through the modules. I'll tell you about that the first time you need to use it. I'll give you specific instructions, and there'll be a link in the show notes for you to get access to that. And then we go into tools for success, and that ranges, there are 15 videos in the paid program on that. So it's a long time, and I'm going to break them up because some of them are longer in the paid program. So I'm going to break them up into smaller periods of time, because this is meant for busy women, right? So I want to keep these episodes short on purpose. I'm going to break them up. But it includes everything from creating a morning routine to how to protect your energy, career development, relationships stuff, sex, anxiety and depression we talk about, surrender and control. There's even like a budgeting module if you want to create a budget. I basically got these range of topics through my own journey and what I struggled with, but also through interviewing many busy working moms on what they struggle with. And I tried to cover all of the most common things that we all struggle with in there. So it's going to be all the tips and tricks and the tools to change your life as it relates to these things. Okay. So, and then underlying those 4 modules, so just to repeat, it's values, goals, boundaries, and tools for success. Underlying that is body image. We're going to go way into body image, because for most women, it is that outer layer of the onion. And the reality is, our body is the vehicle that carries us through life. I always used to say, back when I had done this work, back before I had done this work, well, I really love myself. I think I'm a great person, but I just hate my body. I really did used to say that. And the reality is that's not possible. You are living your life in your body. You can't hate your body and love yourself as a person. Now, there might be things about yourself that you love, which is possible and fine, but overall, you can't hate your body and love yourself as a person. And so in order to live your best life, you have to feel either neutral or positive about your body. And that's really hard to do in our society. It is very, very hard. And I'm going to tell you why, and we're going to get into it in a future episode. But you have to feel either neutral, which is kind of more like most men feel. Now, I know there are men who struggle with body image issues. I'm not minimizing that, but most men feel pretty neutral about their body. Like most men will throw their clothes on in the morning. They'll take a look to see if it matches or if it's like, on their body correctly, whatever. And then they'll walk out and they won't take a second thought about it. That's body neutrality. Okay. That's where you're not looking in the mirror to see if your butt looks big, right? You're just putting on your clothes, checking to see if they look presentable, and you're leaving. That's true neutrality, right? Most women are not there. Most women are on the negative side of that spectrum. And that's why body image is underlying the whole thing, because it's going to be really hard to break through in all these areas if you hate your body. Now, you can do the work simultaneously. By the way, if you do hate your body, don't beat yourself up. That's really normal, and society has taught us to do that. So we're going to talk through all of that stuff. Okay. But that's the method, and that's what all the episodes are going to teach. And I'm so excited about it. All right. But it's very, like, it has a structure. Okay. There will be homework. You'll be creating a document. So this is like real true program in podcast form with some interviews interspersed throughout. Okay. So like I said, if you want to do it faster, you want accountability, it's a 10-week program on the paid program. So go check out the website, womensbestlifeuniversity.com. Okay. Now I want to cover, my 4 tips my 4 critical components of happiness, because happiness is subjective, but I think these 4 components, I believe they apply to all human beings, and they are critical for living your best and happy life. And I've come to that conclusion through my own journey, working with many women on this stuff, and also just like the reading and the research that I've done. Okay, so I'm going to take you through those now. And I realize that this is getting a little lengthy, so I'm going to go fairly quickly because we're going to get into all this stuff as we go through the program, but I do want to keep these episodes on the shorter side. So number 1 is accepting that you're not going to feel happy all the time. Okay, even the happiest people on earth don't feel happy all the time. They have periods of struggle, periods of where they don't feel great or feel negative. And that's okay. That's just part of human life. Okay. You're not going to ever feel happy all the time. The goal is to feel good, both physically and emotionally, mentally, with good energy most days. Okay. And by the way, that's how I like to define health. Well, and blood stats, it goes into health anyway, but health doesn't have to do that much to do with what our body looks like as we think it does. Right. But accepting that you're not going to feel happy all the time. You're going to feel decent, decent is not the word I wanted to use. You're going to feel good energy, physically and emotionally good most days. That's the goal of what we're going for. But we're going to have hard times, hard periods of life, hard days. And so that's why number 2, critical key for happiness, number 2, is learning how to feel and handle negative feelings. So what normally happens when we have those difficult periods in life, or those difficult days or moments, is that we as human beings, we avoid them. We avoid them through food, social media, watching TV, shopping, and then there's a level of things that's like more harmful to our bodies, like drugs, alcohol, we avoid them with, right? Sex addiction, there's a whole list of ways that we avoid negative feelings. And the reality is you got to feel it to heal it. You got to feel it to heal it. And what happens when we avoid through all those things I just said, when you avoid your negative feelings, they build up in your body and they create underlying unhappiness, depression, but also disease. That is very real. Disease, serious diseases, all the ones you can think of, but also like joint pain and headaches, and they mess with our sleep, all of that stuff. So we got to learn how to feel it to heal it. And that is actually not easy, but I'm going to give you all the tips and tricks to do all these things as we go through the method. Number 3, learning how to be present and live in the moment. Because the moment, this moment right now, wherever you are listening or watching this, is your life. This moment is your life. Your life is not later when you lose 20 pounds. Your life is not when your kids get older and they're easier. Your life is not when you get a certain promotion. Your life is not when you make a certain amount of money or find the right partner. Your life is now. And if you're waiting on any of those things or more that I just said to live your life, you're missing out on your life. And that's like a harsh reality, but it's true. Your life is now. The only moment that is real is this present moment right now, because you can't change the past and the future is not guaranteed. You actually don't know how much longer you have to live this life here. And so it is now. So we have to learn how to be present and stop avoiding the present moment for, something better in the future. And this is a hard thing, but we can do hard things. And so I'm going to teach you the tips for this as well. And number 4 is spending your time in ways that are aligned with your values. And I talked about a couple minutes ago how most of us don't ever get deliberate and write down what our values actually are and how we want to spend that time. So there are a bunch of exercises on how we're going to do that. And I want you to get scared, because it doesn't mean you have to like quit your job. or end your relationship, or you don't have to make massive changes to spend more time in ways that you value. We can work it in baby steps. Now, maybe you need to make massive changes, and maybe this will lead you down that road. And if so, that's going to be hard, but it is what you need, maybe, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I don't want you to get scared. Okay. So that's a quick rundown. We're going to go way more into those in future episodes as we go through the Working Mom Happiness Method. Quickly, I want to cover the feel-good non-negotiables, because as I started running the paid program of this through multiple rounds, I had some feedback that said, I wish you would have told me about the feel-good non-negotiables right up front, so I didn't wait so long to start working on them, right? So I'm going to tell you now, because the sooner you start working on these things, the better, right? And it's not rocket science. But it is key for changing your life and feeling good and for living your best and happiest life. So they are in priority order, and they are water, sleep, body movement, eating foods that make you feel good, and stress management. Let me just quickly talk about each one. I put water on top because water is the one that will kill you the fastest if you go without it. The human body is made up of 60 to 70% water, and it is literally the stuff of our lives. And I have had women who just simply by adding in more water have changed the way they feel on a daily basis, and it is a game changer. So maybe you're already great on your water. If so, awesome. I'm not going to give you an amount yet. We'll talk about an amount later. I don't want you to track it necessarily. I just want you to get a cute water bottle, have it with you everywhere you go, and just drink more water, because it will change your life if you're not getting enough currently. Sleep, I think we all understand the importance of sleep, but I just don't think we take it seriously. And for some of us, it's just a discipline issue. It's like, we feel like the only time we get me time is after everyone goes to sleep. That's what we need to work on changing. We need you to value yourself enough to take your me time while everyone else is awake. And I know that is a hard thing, but it's a game changer. So then you can go to bed on time. So we're going to work on that. That will be in a later video. For some people, it's a stress issue with sleep. Like they're good at getting in bed on time, but then they can't fall asleep. So that's why stress management is part of this. And if that is your issue, you want to raise stress management up, but just start paying closer attention to your sleep, see how you're doing with that. Because what I say with all 5 of these is, if you are feeling unhappy or stuck in your life, or overwhelmed or exhausted, or you want to make a big life change because you're not happy, I would always say work on these 5 things first and then see how you feel, because it might just be one of these things that's messed up that can make you feel better without making a huge life change. It might not, but it might be. So start here. Okay. Water, sleep, then body movement. I call body movement for a reason, because it doesn't have to be exercise. It could literally just be like stretching. We're going to talk way more about this in a future episode, but all of the studies that look at the happiest and healthiest people on earth, the top 2 things that correlate in all those studies, number 1, it's relationships. Having relationships, or having people, or sometimes it's a pet. It doesn't have to be a marriage. Just having some kind of consistent relationship and support in your life is number 1, the number 1 most common thing for the people who live the healthiest and longest lives. Number 2 is body movement, moving their bodies, whether it's stretching or walking, and it's not correlated with like hardcore exercise, by the way. It is just cultures who move their body more culturally that have the happiest and the healthiest folks. So those are huge, and we're going to get into more of all of that. Foods that make you feel good. By this, I just mean, I don't mean in the moment while you're eating them. I mean later on. So we need to pay more attention to how the foods we eat make us feel. And this was a game changer for me, because before I knew about this, I didn't know that what we eat impacts our mood and our anxiety levels and our sleep. I just thought what we eat, can make our body feel bad, like make my stomach hurt, but it never occurred to me that what I'm eating impacts every aspect of how I feel in life. And so that's a huge one. So you can just start paying more attention. We're going to go into this in way more detail to how foods make you feel. Number 5 is stress management. And all of these things that I just said help with stress, especially body movement, but also what foods we eat. But meditation is huge and will change your life in so many ways. And we're going to weave that in throughout the program. You're going to hear when I coach people how I talk about integrating meditation. But for now, if you can just start with 2 minutes, if you can make yourself a goal of 2 minutes of meditation per day, that could be in between meetings. It could be, literally you could squeeze in 2 minutes really anywhere. And it can be just to sit and breathe and focus on your breath. You can look at the Breathe app if you have or the Breathe function on your Apple Watch. You could use the Calm app, the Headspace app. But 2 minutes of just sitting and focusing on your breath, just getting into that habit, that is setting the steps to change your life right there. Okay. So those are the 5 feel-good non-negotiables. All right. At this point, I think I've taken you through everything I wanted to cover in the first episode. And I think we're right around 30 minutes. So the introduction I was a little bit more lengthy. I'm going to try to keep them, like I said, between 20 and 30. But thank you so much for listening. I am just, like I said, I'm so excited to start this podcast to just try to help change the world. So it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to the podcast or follow the podcast, depending on where you listen to podcasts. I'm also doing it as a YouTube channel. So I am filming this right now. If you prefer YouTube, you can find it on YouTube as well. Working Mom Happiness Method channel on YouTube. And you can check out my website, Women's Best Life University, for all the resources there. But please subscribe, leave a positive review if you got any benefit out of this, because it will help it reach more people. All right. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you in the next episode.